What's up guys, today we're going over the new exotic Waveframe GL, the dead messenger, which you can get in the game right now. And in this video we'll be going over how to get this weapon, going over how good it is, going over all its exotic perks, and making a few different builds with it. And yesterday we more or less got all the exotics that you could possibly get on day one, and I definitely wanted to review this one first because, as you guys know, Waveframes are among one of my favorite weapon types in the history of Destiny. I love these things, and this being the first exotic one, it's gonna be super cool. Right now my G Fuel code is 30% off. If you guys ever wanted to support me above watching my videos, that is gonna be the best way. Their store will be linked in the comments and description. Also, if you play on Steam and you're looking to purchase Witch Queen, you can do so on my Nexus store. Once again, link in the comments and description. So how do you get this weapon? Well, first you have to do the quest from the helm, which is the season 1. And once you're done with the steps for this week, you will get the kill the messenger quest line, which is only one step, and you'll get the weapon. And this step is the new exotic mission, kind of like the Presage or something like that. And it is 1550 light, and it is pretty hard, and it is timed in 2 different sections. So it took us a few tries to get it down and learn like routes to optimize the mission. So I would recommend for the average player to probably wait until end of this week or next week once you're a little bit higher light, because we did it at roughly 30 under and it was pretty difficult to do. But if you can manage to pull that off this week, you just simply get the GL. There is no further steps. So if we look at the weapon and its perks, the first one, the exotic perk, one-shot handheld grenade launcher. Projectiles release a fan of 3 energy waves on contact with the ground. Then its secondary perk, the fundamentals, old reload, changes weapons damage type, cycling between solar, arc, and void. This weapon also has a catalyst slot. If we look at the Triumph, it says acquired from the quest. I'm not sure if that quest is available yet. I don't believe so. But if we look on light.gg, the perk is the new one, Turnabout. Using this weapon to break the shield of a combatant or a guardian using their super will grant you an overshield. So if you look at the weapon in the game, whenever you hold reload, it will cycle between the 3 light elements, just like hard light. And when you hit the ground, as you see, it does 3 waveframes at once. One going straight, then one going left and right at roughly like a 25-30 degree angle. And one thing I noticed is you can't use the changing elements as the reload itself. You have to first reload, then change the element. And we try to look at the distance of these waveframes on the ground. As you see, it goes pretty far in all 3 directions. If you compare that to a normal waveframe, it seems to be the exact same length, but in 3 directions. So obviously that should be very big for Actor and make it a lot more consistent at hitting big groups that aren't necessarily in a straight line. So if we look at that versus ads, it's exactly that. It is extremely good at just clearing out entire groups that aren't necessarily just in a perfect straight line like it had to be with previous wave frames. The one big question I had with this weapon is, can you hit a single target multiple times with each individual like wave on the ground? And you cannot, no matter how you aim at the target, it will only hit them once, which is kind of unfortunate. So all 3 of the waves on the ground are still coded as one single attack. It just has a much bigger radius. So unfortunately it does not increase the DPS of a wave frame versus a single target, which they're not very good for DPS anyways, they never have been. So overall, comparing this to just a normal wave frame, is it worth the exotic slot? Overall, I would say depending on the situation, it definitely is. A regular waveframe, if you can line up targets, it's gonna be better overall because 1, it's not taking up your exotic slot, and 2, you will also have weapon perks of your choice on the weapon. So for example, on the Deafening Whisper, which is Void, you can have Wellspring or Rampage. On this new one, there's all kinds of cool perks on it. And then even for an Arc GL, you could use Salvo, which is obviously one of the best Actor weapons in the entire game. So overall, long term, I'm not sure how useful this exotic will be compared to just a normal waveframe or a normal GL. I do think having the 3 waves makes it a lot more consistent in more situations where you can't really line up the enemies, and it's gonna be a lot better for activities with multiple shield types, and shields are hard to break, for example match game and master and grandmaster activities. So I think for all of those situations it's gonna be a lot better, and if you're just trying to have fun with it, it's also gonna be really good. But I'm not quite convinced right now that just for general gameplay it's gonna be better than a legendary GL, just because of the fact that it takes up your exotic slot. Some cool builds you can make with this weapon. The first one is for infinite ammo. You could use extra reserves, which means you would have to use the void version of the weapon. And how this mod works is, as you get kills with a void weapon while charge of light, there's a chance of spawning in a special brick. So all you need to do is become charge of light, and the best way would be with blast radius, getting a double kill with the weapon, which is gonna be super easy. Then you can use stacks on stacks to make that ×2. You could also use charged up or supercharged to get up to ×4 charge of light, or even ×5. And at that ×5 or ×4 stack, you would be proccing the extra reserve perk very often and pretty much have infinite ammo with the void version of the weapon. Another thing you could do with the weapon that would work with any element in any subclass would be using elemental well mods. You can throw this into any existing well build you have. The 2 well mods it works with are going to be elemental armaments, which means you have to match the element to your subclass, so that work with all 3 of the light subclasses. And the other mod I work with is going to be explosive wellmaker, which will work with any version of the weapon, arc, solar, and void. It doesn't have to be only solar. So one thing you could do if you wanted to max out the well potential of this weapon is use bountiful wells and use 2 copies of armaments and 2 copies of explosive wellmaker. And what that will then do is, if you're matching the element to your subclass, you'll be able to create 3 of that element, then also 3 solar ones from explosive wellmaker on every single double kill, which means 6 wells, which is more enough to get an entire ability back instantly. So that is going to be obviously really good for ability spam. This thing also works great with Nether Extend on Void for Void 3.0. Also works great with Verity's Brow for the 3 light subclasses, which will obviously help get your grenade back a lot quicker and make it do up to double damage. It will also work on Warlock with things like the Mantle Battle Harmony. So more or less any exotic armor piece that requires a certain elemental final blow, because you can change between all 3 on this weapon. And another example on Titan is the Firewalker boots on solar will give you a huge damage buff to the weapon and all of your solar weapons. So overall, the Dead Messenger is extremely cool. I love waveframes, and the fact that it has 3 at once that will cover a much larger radius than the normal legendary waveframe is extremely useful. And just the fact that you can change between all 3 elements will make it extremely good for like match game content. And just in general use, it feels extremely good for ad clear, even better than a normal waveframe, just because of the fact that it doesn't have to be the perfect situation of enemies in a line for it to work really well. This is going to be more efficient in more situations, but I'm just not quite sure if that is worth the exotic slot yet. Anyways, the rest of the video will just be some straight gameplay with this exotic. Once again, my code AIR is 30% off for G Fuel right now. Definitely take advantage of that. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.